Hey everyone, how's everybody doing today on World Food Day? I'm your host, Natalie Bencavanga. I'm so honored and thrilled to get to moderate this panel on food insecurity. We're going to be talking to incredible panelists, not just from Pittsburgh, but all around. So you won't want to miss it. But just to kick things off, I thought it would be nice if we got to get to know everybody a little bit here. And so I'm going to start things off by popcorning it over to Chef Claudie.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to World Food Day. You guys don't even understand how important this day is. My name is Chef Claudie Pierre, and I am here in the beautiful Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I am also here with a whole bunch of friends and people that work very hard in this industry. World Food Day is a United Nations. This is the 76th year, and all cities, different people from different backgrounds talk about what food security means and also what food insecurity means. So today, I'm representing the EAT Initiative, Empowerment, Awareness, and Training Initiative. So shout out to my whole entire EAT Initiative team. I love you guys. Thank you for allowing us to and working so hard to make this day come together. And we have a whole bunch of special things happening today. In the historic Hill District, we're going to have outdoor activities with the Bill Henry Band and DJ Big Phil and Bounty House. So if you're in the area, please come out. And today we're going to have this panel discussion, and I'm gonna popcorn it right over to, let's see, I'm gonna popcorn it over to Chef Rashad, one of my close friends, and he's in the food secure area in the Bay Area of California. Talk to me, Chef.
Thank you, Chef. Thank you for that. My name is Chef Rashad Armstead. I'm the founder of Epic Ventures. We are a organization based out of Oakland, California, where we fight food insecurity on the small business aspect. We understand that equity over equality before anything. A community can never control itself if it doesn't own itself. So we're out here fighting a good fight over here in Oakland. And I'm gonna bounce it over to Miss Dawn. Go ahead and take it over.
Thanks so much, and thank you for the invitation this morning. My name is Dawn Plummer. I am the Executive Director of the Pittsburgh Food Policy Council, and I'm thrilled to be with you all to have this really critical conversation about food security and how we build it from the ground up. I will pass it to Quiba.
Thank you, Dawn. My name is Raquib. Most people call me Quiba, Raquib Ajamu Usabaru. I'm here in Pittsburgh. I reside particularly in the historical Hill District, and I'm the founder and executive director of the Black Urban Gardeners and Farmers of Pittsburgh Co-op. We're a group of Black growers who came together in the area to fight the disparities that we have faced and that we are facing. And I'm an urban agriculturalist, which means I mix urban farming with community development, fair and just community development and business. I'm going to popcorn it over to Mama Ayana.
My name is Ayana Jones. I'm the CEO and founder of Sankofa Village Projects, and particularly the Sankofa Village Community Garden and Farms. Word is Bond, bike rental and helmet rental and repair. And our vision and goal in the Black community of Homewood South is to eradicate food apartheid and to raise growers. And we are developing generational growers. We're modernizing growing in the Black urban agriculture. We are not sharecroppers. We are Black farmers, and we bring our flair and our attitude with our farming projects. Thank you. I popcorn it over to Lakeisha Wolf.
Thank you, Mama Ayana.
You're welcome.
My name is Sister Lakeisha, and I'm here representing Ujima Collective. I serve as the executive director. I'm also a co-founder. And we are a collective based in the historic Hill District, but we serve that location and beyond. And we provide a fair trade marketplace for artistic, cultural, and business exchange. We primarily work with Black women who have a business that serves the community. And overall, as a collective, we envision communities that are safe and healthy and sustainable for people of Africana descent, wherever we're at in the world, and specifically here in Pittsburgh. And when we say healthy, right, we're using the definition of health, meaning that it's beneficial to one's physical, mental, and emotional state. And so we recognize that, you know, it's really important that people have a healthy relationship with the goods and the services that they use every day, and that there are economic and governance pathways in food just as much as there are social and cultural pathways. And so we believe in creating a cooperative economic platform in which folks can have access and have levels of equity in having healthy food in our communities. So I'm going to popcorn it over to Joel.
I'm Joel Berg. I'm CEO of Hunger Free America. We're a nationwide anti-hunger advocacy and direct service organization. Our view is the way to end food insecurity in America is to make healthier food affordable and physically available by raising wages, creating jobs, ensuring an adequate safety net. I've been with this organization 20 years, and before that, I worked for the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture for 8 years. And I will popcorn it over to Balin Brink.
Thank you, Joel. I'm Balin Brink. I am the Community and Employment Manager at Community Kitchen Pittsburgh. We are a local nonprofit based out of Hazelwood, Pittsburgh, and we work to break down employment barriers for those who face the generational poverty and wealth disparity in Pittsburgh, as well as structural racism. And we work to alleviate all employment barriers as a method of securing food security, income security, and wealth security in Pittsburgh. And I will popcorn it over to Mr. Sam Pierre.
Hello, everybody. Hi, my name is Sam Pierre. I am the Executive Director of the Haitian American Caucus. We are a global community development nonprofit organization with missions here in the United States and in Haiti. We currently serve between 5,000 and 7,000 people annually around healthcare, education, and economic development workshops and trainings. We also have a school at our compound in Haiti with about 897 students with an elementary, junior high school, and a high school on 5 acres of land in Haiti. In the United States, we focus on education, healthcare, and economic development, and our food programs fall under education and learning. We've been working with the initiative and around food insecurity for a few years now. We're really excited to be a part of World Food Day today. I am now going to popcorn it over to Janelle Young.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, my name is Janelle Young. I go by JY Originals as an artist and muralist. So I do large public works of art around the city and beyond. And my number one thing is no starving artists. So whether that means from a food standpoint or a creative standpoint, feeding your soul, those things are all very important to me. I'm also a community artist in residence at Urban Kind Institute, where we focus on breaking down barriers for thriving families. What does it mean for children and families to be able to thrive here in Pittsburgh? Thank you. And I will popcorn it over to Shelly.
I'm Shelly Danko Day. I'm the food policy planner for the city of Pittsburgh. I manage the Adopt a Lot program in the city, which allows residents to access city-owned land for food, flower, and rain gardens. Last year, we completed the Feed Pittsburgh report, which is, I also work on broader food system issues, but last year we completed the Feed Pittsburgh report. That is the first time that the city has mapped out data associated with the food insecurity and identified areas that we refer to as the healthy food priority areas, which are traditionally the food apartheid areas that we all know about, but we haven't really had it mapped out before. So now it's data that the city can use for its future planning. And we know that those areas are primarily Black residents, and it's such a bigger problem in these areas. And I want to acknowledge my white privilege and use that to help alleviate and solve food insecurity. And I'm really happy to be on this panel. Thank you so much.
Chef Stefan Duran, Chairman and CEO of the Haitian Culinary Alliance, and an initiative called Chef in Action in Haiti. We have been in the south of Haiti after this devastating earthquake, feeding the population in partnership with Wall Central Kitchen, doing about 30,000 meals a day. Our organization is a big promoter of agriculture in Haiti, especially when we've realized that agricultural powerhouse in the Caribbean, like Haiti, became about 80% importers of goods outside of Haiti instead of producing our own products. So for the past 10 years, we have been promoting through restaurants and festivals the use of local ingredients in purchasing products directly from farmers.
Christine, would you like to go, please? And I think you are our last, but certainly not least.
Sure. Good day, everyone. I'm Curtistine Walker. I'm the director of Pittsburgh Schools Food Services. And basically, we are in the business of providing breakfast and lunch for all of the students in the school district, as well as serving snack and dinner for the various snack and dinner programs. In addition to that, we are also the vendors for the City Parks program, as well as the north and western part of Allegheny County. Basically, our meals and the way that we're operated are basically determined by the USDA and the Food and Nutrition Division of the Department of Education. And also we have to follow the rules and regulations set by the school district, as well as the Allegheny County Health Department. And that's basically what we do.
Wonderful. Awesome. So let's kick things off. So I hear the word food insecurity. This is the title of this panel's discussion, but what does that actually mean? And according to some statistics, they say more than 3 billion people, that's 40% of the world's population, cannot afford a healthy diet. And 38 million of those people reside in the United States. 4 out of 10 Pittsburghers live below the poverty line, and 7 out of 10 Black Pittsburghers live in cities' most food insecure areas. So when we hear those statistics, but then we really boil it down, pun intended, because we're talking food, about what's really going on in our communities, when you hear food insecurity, what does that mean as it pertains to your work? And Ms. Ayana, I'd like to start with you to answer this.
I just said to myself, I'm not going to say a lot, but okay. Caught me off guard. Food insecurity means in my community that we are devalued as human beings. So the food that comes to our neighborhood is second rate. We have programs here in Pittsburgh who pass out food in our community that are at the deadline of being thrown away as rotten food, not being able to use. Now, at one point, people were championing that because it was saving food, we weren't wasting, and it was coming to the community. But as we matured in our understanding of urban agriculture and a healthy lifestyle, we started looking at programs and ways to bring quality produce into our communities. It's not that the food is not available, it's that we have to get it to our people. We at Sankofa, we developed a program where we take fresh produce, 30 pounds of fresh produce to senior citizens. Well, you can't ask them to drive through a line and pick up food, or you can't ask them to bring a cart. You have to take the food to them. So we developed a delivery service where we take the food to high rises in our community for senior citizens, put it in their day room, and they can come down and get as much as they want. Um, that has been part of our answer to the food insecurities in our community. One thing at Sankofa Village Community Gardens, we pride ourselves on developing solutions. So when the seniors told us, look, we can't wheel fresh produce, no matter how important it is, 4 or 5 blocks. We need you to bring it to us. We then developed, along with other community organizations, we developed a delivery process where we deliver food to our seniors.
Thank you so much for that.
You're
Chef,
welcome.
Chef Rashad, how does food insecurity, how did that impact and inspire the work that you do with your communities?
I believe that one of the things that I think that we sometimes forget about the food insecurity piece is the economic piece, the money in the hands of the community. I think that we forget about investing in, smaller grocery stores, restaurants, making sure that they have the adequate financing that they need to provide the community with healthy food that's affordable for the community. So I think food insecurity, yes, it's a piece of people are hungry, but it's also a piece of people don't have economic control that they need in their communities to determine what kind of food is coming in and out of their community. And also it's one of those things where we can is feeding people the only solution to fight poverty or food insecurity, or is it economic control? And coming up with a solution instead of just kind of like putting a band-aid on the gunshot wound is not working for us. It's time for us to really go in there and dig out and pull that bullet out and figure out what's going on in the inside, so that we can so that it can be healed and we can start building off of the healing part of it.
I totally understand that. So it sounds to me like it's a very intersectional issue. And when I think of intersectional issues, my mind immediately goes to Cuiba, because you and I have had many conversations about how all of these issues intersect with food justice, with racial justice, with economic justice, with environmental justice. Cuiba, can you talk a little bit about the programs that you've developed to help to deal with all of these issues and how they intersect?
So when we speak of food insecurity, we normally talk as far as households being insecure. We're very intentional with our words, and so are others on this Zoom. We use the word food apartheid instead of food deserts or healthy food priority areas. We call it what it is because this is intentionally done for disparities against Black and brown people. It goes by your zip code. So in Homewood, 6,000 residents, no grocery store since 1995. The Hill District, 15,000 plus residents, no grocery store since 2019. And we face these disparities as not only Black growers, as food justice activists as well. And it's important that we all come to the table in whatever cities we are living in, statewide, regional wide, or even national wide, to make this happen. So there are those of us who are here in Pittsburgh that work together. We have a motto: we just don't grow food, we grow minds and leaders. And our community development approach is a Ubuntu method. I am because you are. And that's important to us because we all have something to add to the table, be it is we're just growing food, distributing food to markets. We have a farmers market that we do in collaboration with the Homewood Food Access Working Group, the Hill District Food Access Working Group, the core co-purveyors. We're creating a community cooperative grocery store. Same thing in Homewood, but it's not just us doing the work. We're doing it collectively, working in concert for our people in our communities. So that's why we're very intentional about our work. We're clear about it, and we're here to help our communities. Thank you.
That's amazing. So you touched on something a little bit. I think when we're talking about these issues, we're really talking about the systems and the larger than the individual, right? These collective issues. So Joel, from your perspective, working with Hunger Free America and seeing how wasteful, this economic system of capitalism has been as it pertains and relates to food insecurity, what do you do in your organization that helps to sort of mitigate the impact of this system that's so wasteful?
Well, I could never explain food insecurity to my late mother, no matter how hard I tried. But basically, it's being in America 1 or 2 paychecks away from hunger, rationing food, not being able to afford the healthiest food. And capitalism is a problem. But if you've been to communist countries, as I have, there's a lot of inequality of wealth there as well. There's a lot of inequality of wealth in feudalism. The bottom line is, throughout world history, people with money and power have created systems to enhance their money and power. So what we really need is a people's movement to change the policies. And I love urban agriculture, and we at Hunger Free America support it strongly. But we also believe we need broader changes, not just helping a few dozen people at a time, but tens of millions of people at a time. Case in point, Pennsylvania has the lowest minimum wage out of any state in the Northeast or Mid-Atlantic coast. It's $7.25 an hour. It hasn't been raised in more than 15 years. The Democratic governor of the state supports an increase in the wages, and the Republican legislature has opposed it. I'm not being partisan, I'm just being factual. And as long as people are working full time and playing by the rules and can't afford to pay for housing, healthcare, prescription drugs, childcare, transportation, and yes, food, it should be no shock why we have so much food insecurity. So we need a people's movement to force things like increases in the minimum wage, to support the Build Back Better plan pending in Congress now, which would create a huge new Green Deal, new green jobs program, including a climate core, which would create higher wage entry-level jobs to be able to fight hunger and improve the environment, and make sure things like SNAP, which used to be called food stamps, and WIC for pregnant women and children under 5, and school meals are available for everyone who needs it. And we think actually school meals should be universal and free in every school in the country.
Thank you for that. So let's pivot a little bit. So we went through an unprecedented time in our history, and we're still going through it with this pandemic, with this global pandemic that's impacted all communities across the world. Chef Claudia, when you saw what was going on with COVID, how did you and your organization leap into action, and what did you do to help mitigate the impact of all of the new faces that you were seeing coming through the doors, or the people that were not food insecure prior to COVID, but now we're experiencing it?
Well, a lot of what everybody said, you'll see that, like you said, it's intersectional. It cross paths, it overlaps with one another. So oddly enough, we had to shut down a cafe, which was a community staple. It was a place where everybody came, and artists and people came to do business. And we had to shut down because we didn't know what to expect. They told us school would be out for 2 weeks. Remember that? I know Curtis Steed is looking like, yeah, I remember that. So we were supposed to be off of school for 2 weeks, and we'll get back and everything is fine. I'm getting calls in 3 weeks saying, hey, chef, what are we going to eat? There's no after school program. There's nothing. What do we do? I had senior citizens who would come and get coffee and tea from our cafe all the time. So we just completely took our inventory and literally said, hey, we're going to put it out there. Whoever needs, come and get, because right now we can't open up to the public individually wrapped. But that was just the innovation part, right, on our behalf, because we believe in our people just like our people believe in us. What I do want to say is it's very important that we note that food is something that every single individual in the world has to come across. Like, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, it doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. So food is the one thing that, whether you like it or not, you will relate that you need to have it. You need sustenance. So what we do with the EAT initiative, when we say empowerment, awareness, and training, is we do want to empower people to understand there's more to learn. We have to say, hey, how do we get to more people? Because food insecurity or food apartheid already exists. It just has gotten exacerbated by the pandemic. So what happens is we're seeing it more on a higher level, and people that were 2 paychecks away, like someone said, now are living it, right? They didn't see it because they were moving money around and robbing Peter to pay Paul. So our approach now is, which is why we have all these people on the call list. We want our municipalities and our government officials, and we want our urban agriculture and our artists, right? Because these are all the people that are affected by food and the people that are creating policy and that's what the Eat Initiative decided to do. It's not even about partisanship. It's literally about peopleship, right? Bringing people together, no matter what sector you're in, tech, if you're in economics, if you're in artists, we want to come together so people can actually make decisions around food, which affects all of our little babies and our senior citizens. And we want a cooperative model. That's what we need. We need a model where people are investing. What do you do when you invest into something? You get a return on your investment. It's called asset framing. I'm wearing a shirt from Be Me, which talks a lot about asset framing. I no longer want to talk about my community as at risk or food desert. We now talk about our community as an asset. Hey, if you invest in the historic Hill District or in Homewood or on the West Side or in the South Side, you will get a return on your investment. If you invest in Haiti, the people will invest in themselves as well. And that's when we have a solution with the people leading the solution versus someone with superhero syndrome. And we can do it by working with our municipalities, working with our government officials, working with the people in all these sectors to really bring it around so that in our public schools we can have kids just like in the suburbs eating a healthy breakfast, eating a healthy snack, eating after school, so that they can really absorb and obtain all the things that we're teaching them, and having a better community, a better city, a better world. I saw I kind of went on a rant. I get it a little.
No, I loved it. I was like, yes, very much enjoying that, because that's what I love about you, Claudia, is like your passion and your intensity for this topics. And it's so vital that we all carry this in whatever sector that we're a part of. And so, Janelle, for you, being an artist, utilizing activism in that respect, how do you find your way into the food justice movement that has the most impact from your perspective?
Yes, a lot of people have these conversations and they wonder what's an artist doing here, right? And so I think there are actually multiple angles. One is that art is also a communication tool. So how are we, telling people about the programs, that there's food available? What does the packaging look like? How do we know where this is coming from? All of those things are essentially created by an artist. Those communication tools are how we were getting people on the same page, how we were gathering our communities, right? But then there's also the other side of that. We've talked about kind of the economic piece, but artists are pretty much part of the gig economy. So when COVID, happened, when the pandemic really started up and things started shutting down, we had performances, sessions, studio visits, everything canceled, right? So then we don't have one or two paychecks to really look forward to if you're not a full-time employee somewhere. So then you're affected in that way as well. And correct, I did not have the cafe to go to to just join and gather with my people to even have a creative mindset. How can you expect people, including artists, to have space for something like creativity when they're worried about what they're going to eat? It's very, very difficult to get to that point. And I think a lot of people have experienced that in different ways. A lot of people think about, there's visual artists like me, but there are also all kinds of, other forms of entertainment and art. So people coming home from a long day, what do you want to do? You want to watch a movie and have dinner with your family. That's another form of art. And how do we keep that up? How do we get there? People were turning to artists for relief in this pandemic, and not really even realizing, what that means. So I work in a lot of different ways within communities and talking to youth and families, and trying to see like how people can be creative. But that is so intersectional as well. So when you have events, like you definitely want to feed people. When you have events, you want to make sure they have transportation to get there. You want to make sure they're going home to a house or a roof over their head, right? So I think all of these things really come together in like how we spend our time together and how can we focus on getting to the next step, if we, can't even figure out what we're going to eat.
I think those are excellent points. Thank you for sharing that. And when we really think about this, it's always coming back down to the basics, right? When we don't have our basic needs met, we can't expand upon ourselves and become the best version of ourselves or the highest version of ourselves. So I think that's so important to kind of be mindful of. And Lakeisha, what are your thoughts on what Janelle's just said, and what would you like to add to the conversation on that?
Yeah, everybody said some really powerful things that I totally agree with, and you know, our collective works with a lot of different creative entrepreneurs, and for a long time, even at the founding, early to 2008 and 2010, all of that, we were doing open air marketplaces, and members of our collective who worked in food and were very passionate about food justice. Started a farm on Bedford Avenue in the Hill District. So we were doing a lot of work because we recognized that number one is that the earth provides, right, everything that we need, right? And that's not just food. So even, other products that artists and like makers make require something that comes from the land. And so there is a specific sort of principled approach we need to take around how we steward the earth, right? And then culture, culture and creativity is the glue really that holds all of those things together. As folks have talked about, right? Like, arts and culture is what helps us to recognize our humanity and our shared humanity. And oftentimes, right, because of the system we're subjected to, that what happens is that historically there are folks who have been, and I'm speaking specifically to about and to Black people, right, who've been the commodity, right? So we oftentimes find ourselves being used for our culture, being used, right, whether it is connected to food, connected to music, right, all of these things, but yet we're at the bottom rungs of the ladder in terms of being able to have access to what we deem as the American dream. And so I feel like so much of it is, oftentimes I think about this country as this like dichotomy between saying certain things and then doing the complete opposite, right? And so I feel like we need a reckoning with our principles and our values in practice, right? And so I think that the power always rests with the people, and I have so much respect for everybody on this call because most of the folks on this call are working on the ground every day with people, and I believe that it's really important that folks come to understand the ways in which these systems work so that they can understand their access to power, and that we get to shape what policy looks like. We get to we should and should be owning the means of production of food and other things that we need to have like a decent quality of life. And the other thing, and specifically about this being World Food Day, is it makes me think about the global system of food. And so when years ago, we myself and some other members, we had traveled to Tanzania, doing a fair trade partnership, creating a line of clothing. And what was interesting is when we went to Tanzania, they actually produce a lot of bananas and also a lot of coffee, right? However, because of the monopolies of systems of capitalism, there's folks around the world, Black and brown people around the world who are denied access to the world market. So thinking about our brothers on this call working specifically in places like Haiti, there are clear examples of the ways in which like global policy impact the ways in which Black people can experience equity and just a decent quality of life. They're cut off of the means altogether. And so I think it's really important that we have these conversations and that people recognize all of those parallel and like intersecting points, because there's so many of them.
Thank you so much for that. And yeah, Sam and Chef Stefan, would you both like to sort of weigh in and each take a turn, just sort of responding to what she was saying about these global issues?
Absolutely. This is Sam. I think it's really difficult when you think about food insecurity in a first world. I guess we'd call it the first world country in the United States of America. Imagine, what it looks like in a third world country like Haiti. However, the natural resources are very rich in a country like Haiti. So it's really about changing the narrative and getting amazing folks like us who's on this program today to look, identify, and reinvest ourselves into the process, right? So creating supply chains, right, that can pull from the amazing natural resources that we have in the ground in Haiti, and that we can now take those and trade them internationally, right? While adding a social impact piece to it, right? So we work with organizations like Souls for Souls, right? Who can give children shoes, right? While also helping them learn how to plant and helping them learn how to farm, right? Right now, we're working on expanding our goat husbandry program where we can give goats to families, right? A family can get this goat. Now they can, that goat can help sustain that family and things like that we're doing internationally, but also connecting it with our kids who are members here in the US, right? So that they can understand to not take for granted the fact that dinner is at 6 o'clock every night, right? Not everyone all over the world. We tell them all the time, a 16-year-old somewhere doesn't get a chance to say, "Oh man, I don't want to have dinner tonight with my family," right? Because their family can't afford to have dinner. So just being able to connect those dots and letting people from all over the world understand that. And that's one of the things I love about working with the EAT initiative, is that we're able to partner and do things like work with Fresh Direct and give over 500 blessing boxes to different churches in the community, so that they can take advantage of not only good getting food, but fresh food, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, right? Because there are food deserts even here in New York. Although World Food Day, right now we're looking at we're heavy Pittsburgh here today, but New York City still has food insecurities in some of our most vulnerable communities. So working with the EAT initiative, working with different cities and different municipalities to make sure our people locally and internationally get the help and the resources that they need.
Great. And Chef Stefan, would you like to add to that?
Absolutely. When I moved back to Haiti about 12 years ago, I realized that a country who used to be a powerhouse in agriculture, even when people are living on less than $3 a day, they were able to have access to food that it was being grown locally. Today, we are importing over 90% of the food that we consume, and those foods are not accessible to the people that are making $3 a day. And it becomes a very difficult situation. And the promotion of products that are coming from the outside have taken over to where a lot of people who used to be growing their own foods, a lot of people who used to be growing foods naturally are no longer doing that. So the access to natural products, fruits, vegetables, etc., is no longer as available as it used to be. So you have a huge increase in diabetes and children going hungry, and that becomes a very difficult situation to where we need to switch, to do a 360-degree switch, and turn back the clock to where we were growing our own foods. We were promoting healthy eating in Haiti, and that's no longer happening. I think that's a very important situation where places all over the Caribbean are going through that same disparities in access to fresh products, because it's much easier to import to import than to grow stuff directly in house.
What concerns me about that, and thank you so much for sharing those insights, this idea of access, especially in places that are more remote, as the climate crisis continues to heat up this planet, right? Whether people want to admit it or not, it's happening. And the issue of access and food is going to become more and more apparent. We're going to have more people migrating into different parts of their own country and into different countries, and this is really going to impact how we relate to our food system, our agricultural system. So it can't just be individuals that are tackling this. We need the support of governments, corporations, and larger entities. So when we're looking at this from a policy perspective, Dawn and Shelley, if you'd like to weigh in on this, how can governments make a big impact when it comes to creating access in a time of a climate crisis? And how does environmental justice equate to food justice?
I can start, Shelley, if you want to jump in. I just wanted to build on some of the previous comments, and that is, what we really need to build is what's called food sovereignty. And food sovereignty is a concept and a practice that's been built by small farmers and peasant farmers globally for over 20 years. Have been building this concept that the people need to be in control of production, distribution, and consumption of food. And that includes the policy mechanisms and the ownership, like Rashad was talking about as well. And what we've seen over recent decades is the increasing concentration of that wealth and those means of production into the hands of the few, and increasingly into the global conglomerates that basically control our food system. And so at the same time, we're seeing people are actually completely disconnected from food, don't understand its role in our bodies and in our health and in our communities and of the planet. And so I think, part of what we need to do, my answer would be, we need to unleash food democracy. We need to understand where significant decisions are made, how systems are built that determine what food ends up in our refrigerators and what food does not end up in our refrigerators and on our plates, and understand how to engage in those different conversations, whether that's with city council, whether that's with the State Department of Agriculture and the state legislature, whether that's federal government. And connected to that is obviously understanding the role of corporate food and what access do they have, what voices do they have. They're very organized, they're highly effective in their communications mechanisms. So we, as someone mentioned before, we need a people's movement of people like us around the country coming together and advocating for something different. And I think the role of government is really to unleash that food democracy, create spaces of participation. And that's why at the Food Policy Council, we've been working over the last few years in our region to design, together with many of you on the phone here, our region's first food action plan. So how can we sync up and dig deep and link arms and push this agenda forward through practical solutions and also big visioning that we can do together?
Yeah, it's a big question, and it's a big what do we do to fix this? Leah Penniman from Soulfire Farm, I love that she said that the food system isn't broken, it's working exactly as it was designed to work, and it's capitalism. And when you really think about it, I think Claudia was saying everybody needs food. That's, yeah, for sure. But air, water, and food, those are three things that literally anywhere on the planet you could live, and any human being, those are the three things you need to literally survive. You will die without air, water, and food within a matter of time. So coming up with the solution for that is a really food is the only thing that's really being held from people because of money, which is something that was made up when you think of it. And so it's a really tricky thing to try and fix. And there's no one solution. I think that's the key. There's a variety of solutions that have to be implemented all at the same time, to lift up what's the activities that are already happening out there. So growing your own food, and the food sovereignty movement is really important, and a great important part of that. But there's a lot of things that I think the government can do and larger entities can do to help that, because we have neglected that system for so long, neglected our local system, neglected the municipal services that we used to provide. And then food banks had to step up, and other nonprofits had to step up to try and fix those problems. So I think that's where municipalities and government entities can help, is by, you know, filling those gaps that were left there. And I just want to encourage everybody to work with your local representatives, because they are people that are really concerned about this and want to make a difference. It's just that we need the answers, and we need the energy or the suggestions of how to fix this to come from the community. It's not going to happen from the top down. And there's a huge issue of distrust with government. I've been in my job for 8 years now, and I feel like I'm not even chipping away at any of that. So I just want to encourage the cooperation to happen with all of you on the call, and anyone watching. Work with your local representatives and your local food policy people. If you have one, you're very fortunate in your city to have a food policy planner, because there aren't very many of us. There's less than 30 in the whole country. So, and that might be being generous. So work with them. We really have a passion to help solve these problems and do what we can. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So before we get to any questions, I just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. So I still have two panelists that I'd like to get to. So Curtistine, when you hear all of this from like the educational perspective, where does your mind go?
Well, okay, and looking at how everyone's talking about the government, and I understand where you're coming from, but when it comes down to the government, they basically dictate how and I won't say dictate, they provide all the instructions and funding for how we feed the students. And I must say, during the pandemic, they listened to what people had to say, because we were given all kind of waivers, and all kind of walls were taken down that have been there before, whenever we have to put the menus together and the types of foods that we're allowed to provide. They gave us all kind of waivers to make sure that we could get any food that we had out there to those students. And they're actually trying to make sure that we do that now. Right now, with the food shortage that we have, and what we have to do to get food in here to actually get on the menu and serve to the students, believe you me, we are getting help from the government. Once again, with these waivers that they are allowing us to use, and also with just all of the, I guess you could say, we have a lot of meetings and we have a lot of webinars to basically tell us what we can do to get food to these students. So looking at it a totally different way, we actually are getting the help that we ask for based on what you complain about and what you advocate for. They do listen to you, and they did. That's how we were allowed to do some of the things that we were allowed to do. And that was very important. Since I work with school meals, I can tell you right now that school meals have a stigma. The kids are like, oh, I don't like cafeteria food. That food's nasty, blah, 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 blah. We have actually tried to bring chefs into the district to work with the cafeteria staff to make the food more palatable, to make the food look better. And what we're running into now is a shortage of staff. So I'm trying to bring in new and innovative ideas and have a staff shortage. So right now we're dealing with, the shortage of food and getting food in here, and then also getting people in here to prepare the food. So where else? I mean, an easy place to get food, I feel, is school. And when you talk about food security, if the children are sent to school, the food is there. They need to be encouraged to eat the food. And if there's a problem with the food, you need to tell us so that we can straighten out the problem, because that's where they're going to get this meal. When they go to school, they're getting 2 meals. The government pays for 2 meals. And if they're in an after school program, they pay for a snack and a dinner. So that's 4 feedings that the government provides through the schools. So I'm saying we need more support with the school meal programs. We need more of the groups. Now, the Food Policy Council is one of our partners, and believe you me, they do a lot with us. So the Adagio Health interns, the American Dairy Association work very closely with us to provide a lot for our program. I welcome the other groups to please work with us as well. Instead of making school food look like a negative thing, help us to make it a positive thing, because like I said, there are 4 sources of feeding that kids can have just coming to school. So I'm asking for help that way. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated your perspective because it was just so pragmatic. It's like sometimes we need to get just back down to the basics and understand that these are the issues that are actually happening and impacting our kids right on the ground level. Sometimes it's easy to get sort of these big ideas, but when we're really down here in reality, this is what's actually going on and what is needed. It's sometimes not the same language. You're not always speaking the same language. I find fascinating. So, Balin, you are our last panelist that I haven't had a chance yet to hear from. So would you like to respond a little bit to what you've heard and share a little bit of your thoughts coming from your perspective?
Yes, I would love to. Everything I've been hearing so far has been wonderful. You all made such great points. Um, Being someone who works against food insecurity at a local nonprofit who is a bit smaller, we see a lot of flexibility that's needed. Our community is one that's constantly changing, but is also historic. The segregation that happens in Pittsburgh has been going on for hundreds of years. And those places may change due to urbanization, but the populations targeted do not. During COVID, we actually had to switch our entire model over. The way that our program is built, we're a culinary school. We work to educate people on the food system and how they can become a better part of it. We make sure that all of our graduates have a living wage in the restaurant industry, which is unheard of in a lot of places. And we had to switch over completely to hiring people and producing food. We put out over 60,000 meals during COVID that went all to low income populations and people who needed it to support them. But we also employed, I believe, 40 people who needed jobs during COVID who lost their positions. And I think that, as was said, especially by the last speaker, there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen. There's a lot of language barriers, whether that's an academic language barrier, which is not built to be presented to everyone, whether that's a governmental language barrier, where you can't understand the facts and figures as presented, which, in my personal opinion, is a legacy that's on purpose. There's a lot of purposeful separation within our communities, people from resources, nonprofits from government, and we are trying to fight against those barriers rather than working together to abolish them. And I think that that's the key to help solve some of these problems, but also as a white person who has to recognize their privilege working in the system, I think that for the most part, especially in Pittsburgh, where government is largely a white atmosphere, we need to listen better to the people that we are trying to help. And I think that that is something that does not happen often.
Thank you for
I
that.
think one thing we have to remember is that the money that's being distributed is our tax dollars. We don't owe anybody anything. We should be getting our fair share of the economics in this city and in this community and in this country. We pay taxes. It's a myth and a fallacy to think that Black folks don't pay taxes, because we do, even if it's just on the things that we buy. And we buy everything. We are the biggest consumer in this country on almost every level. So when people say, well, you don't represent your community's not represented because you don't pay taxes. Oh, yes, we do. Our problem is we don't demand our fair share. We come to the table late, and then we want to be mad at everybody. But panels like this are where we start at the beginning to develop a foundation up under us, so that we have some leverage of going to the table and say, like, yo, hold up, we pay this much in taxes. We deserve the same tax benefits that Brookline, that Dormont, that all of those different little pockets of places in Pittsburgh receive. So I think it's also in our community a very important part to change the mindset, to change the mindset in our community. Everything we get, we deserve. And
Mama
people
Ayana,
need to stop thinking that we owe them something. It's quite the opposite.
the funniest thing about this group is every single person here came on, didn't matter, because they understood the assignment. And I believe in my heart, everyone understands the assignment. Right now is we need to come together as a collective. You see, like there's Black and brown people and our white allies and people doing things in different sectors. And the purpose of this is to break that language barrier. Even when I talk to some people in government and they're like, we need you to present this in a way that other people present in, or in a way that really explains certain things and ask in a certain way, which sucks because we just don't know. So now it's time for us to really start to understand the language that other people are using, understand each other, and trust each other. So as a collective, we can say, hey, this is how we actually break down. This is how we ask for, and we shouldn't have to ask for it, to be honest with you, but this is how we put in a proposal for certain things and certain monies to come in. Now, I will say this. I'd be remiss to say we are hurting each other by the silos. There's so many siloed efforts, and people are spinning their wheels and not willing to work together because of a previous beef or email or this person's cousin or that. And I am here to say, not only to the people on this panel, but to people around the world, the time is now. We have administrations changing. We have money coming in to our yes, demanded. Yes, you're right. It's not asking, it's demanding for us to get our fair share in things that but we have to have our collective groups come together with the education that we have to talk about, from domestic and abroad, ways that we've learned from talking to our friends and our allies, to make sure that we're making this the right decision, especially when it comes to food, which, as we all agreed, is the one thing that we all have in common. So I just wanted to put that out there. You're right. We have to demand it, but we have to come together. And a lot of times we think working harder alone is going to make it happen. And that's the biggest myth anyone could tell you. That's the best way. Divide and conquer. They're always going to have an upper hand if we're always divided. I'm sorry.
Isn't there that statement that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go farther, you go together? So I love that. Thank you, Claudia, for sharing your thoughts. We're going to wrap this up. But Rashad, you've had your hand up patiently for so long now that I would be remiss not to let you have the sort of last word here. So please share with us your thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. I was over here jumping in my seat right now. Everybody was saying so many great things. And I know there are so many layers to making changes happen. If you look at the spectrum of our world that we've lived in, where you have to ask yourself, why hasn't poverty been solved? Why are we still dealing with the food insecurity? Because, and I heard one of our sisters say it was all a setup. This is a part of the system that exists, that we've been operating in. And as people that do this fight constantly, it's tiring, and it takes a toll on your mental and on your spiritual health, because you're fighting constantly a battle that you look at like, I'm going to be fighting this for the rest of my life. But it's time for us to really start thinking about, what's the problem here? What's this system that we're fighting against? How do we figure out how to make our politicians on the local, federal level more accountable? How do we start making these corporations more accountable? And it's really about us demanding and letting them know we're not going to sit back and take you just saying yes to us now just because you want us to shut up. We don't want crumbs anymore. It's time for us to start demanding and saying, actually, we want the power. I don't want you to come in, sit at the table, and speak for me. Number one, you should never have a community representative that does not look like or identify with the community that they're trying to help. Meaning that if you have a community or a district or a zip code that is majority Black, they should not have someone speaking for them that does not look like them, because you are not kin to me. So you don't even understand what the problem is. You don't understand my trauma. You don't understand what I've experienced. So how can you even speak for me? And it's time for people to understand, not only can you sue local officials, you can sue your government for doing certain things. You can get rid of people in positions like mayors, council people, city councils, whoever they are. It's time for us to start replacing those people with folks that have a heart and a soul to want to really help out the community. Not the folks that are just talking and speaking what we want to hear. No, we actually want people that understand policy, they understand process, they understand that put people first before they put anybody. And a lot of our government officials, those people that are in control, or even the folks that are speaking for us, and this is just not government officials, these are our local entrepreneurs, these are our local celebrities, these are our local famous folks that they actually get the platform. It's time for us to start calling them out, because a lot of them are not doing it with the mindset where they want to see people be progressive and they want to see the community get in control. They're actually doing it because now social media is a thing. They're doing it to become famous now. But all of us on this phone call, we know the looks in the eyes of mothers and fathers that are struggling to feed their children. We get to hug these people. We get to talk to them. We see these small businesses going through so much just to survive and pay their staff, or can't find the right staff. We see that on a daily. And it is time for us to start speaking for them, because the power structure that exists now, they're not talking for us. They're not speaking for us. This is why the solution is not happening, because they're not in on the ground, and they're not our kinfolk. There's a saying in the Black community, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. These people that are speaking for us are not kin to us. They don't represent or speak from our experiences of the pain and everything that we get to see, because hunger is a real thing. And children are starving out here. People are struggling to feed their kids. And it's time for us to start really standing up and saying, this is not going to be a thing anymore. So that's my final thing. Thank y'all again.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with all of us. And thank you to everyone on this panel. I know we could actually keep going for at least another couple of hours. All of you are so inspiring to me, and all of the incredible work that you're doing in your communities that are helping both locally, nationally, and globally. Let's keep these ripple effects going here on World Food Day. You can also hashtag it World Food Day if you're on social media, and hashtag Food Heroes. And I think I'm looking at a bunch of them right now. So thank you to all of you for joining me. I'm Natalie Bensavanga. I was honored here to moderate today. And thank you, Chef Claudia, for having me. Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.